welcome to episode 11 of Anne and Steve Talk Stuff, where Anne Blake, that's me, talks to Stephen Kinsella, that's him, about all things stuff. Stephen, how are you getting on?
I'm good. I am slowly, like third policeman style, turning into. I'm starting to see the value of call center workers with these kind of cool headphone things. I'm now dreaming of a wireless one. So we're all living through Zoom calls. I guess one of the kind of weird things is the term is ending. So we have lots of students who are, kind of emailing saying, "Hey, look, can I have an extension or whatever?" And kind of just being, we're doing the decent thing, which is to recognize that it's a pandemic, and
Yes.
giving extensions and all that sort of thing. But actually, at this time of the year, what we spend an enormous amount of our time doing is planning next year or next semester, so September. So lots and lots of calls and Zoom calls and all that this week about what are we gonna do next September, right? So and we don't know is the honest answer. Lots and lots of theories, lots of ideas. Switch the university on for 4 days, turn it off for a day. People come in for 10 days and leave for 4. This kind of like, how to do social distancing in a 17,000 student university.
Mm-hmm.
Like I teach a 560 student lecture in the concert hall. Like if people observe social distancing like they do now, just getting into the concert hall will take the hour of the lecture. So how are we going to do all these things? So a large part of my life at the moment feels like I'm living in this kind of weird, uncertain world where in September, everything is either the same as it is now, roughly, meaning I have to just do all the teaching online, or it's a bit not that,
Okay.
but it is, or what, and we kind of have to get it ready now. Students and people who don't like the public sector think that we just rock up, and teach for 2 hours and then leave. Which is true. No, it's not. It's not true. It's completely not true. Yeah. But these kind of planning phases of the year are like this has been totally disrupted. So that's been my thing. And then I'm really noticing this week, because I'm doing lots and lots of calls with lots of different people, that there's a severe fatigue setting into lots of people. There's a lot of people just going, they were, it was panic, and it was, stiff upper lip, and it was like, yes, let's do this. And then it was like crisis mode, and it was like, yes. And then it was like, we're going to do this. And and now it's like, okay. And I think people are struggling a little bit to keep the head up. I wrote a piece for The Currency this week. And the piece was, the government needs to communicate with people when the lockdown's going to end. Right. Or what, not when, like it can't be like on June the 2nd it's over, like that's not obviously that's not in anyone's gift, but the government needs to say, here are the criteria by which, if we see this, we will start removing the lockdown. And the problem with that is you're increasing people's risks of getting further infections, right? So like, who bears that risk? And how do you do it? So like, are kids going back to school? Does that increase the risk of other people getting reinfected? The science seems to say, actually, kind of no, it doesn't. They're learning so much more about this. Even last week, there was the state of knowledge was that kids kind of could be carriers. And now it doesn't seem like they're anywhere near as infectious as other types of humans, according to the latest study. So it's like on Italians, actually. As our knowledge of the disease evolves, that's changing, and that then changes the kinds of planning that we can do in the university, right? So you've got like a scientific study done on children in Italy, northern Italy, altering the planning behavior of economists in Limerick. Like it's a very, very a strange situation. And yeah, communicating when this will end is probably a good thing. But that's enough about me. Tell me about you. How are you getting on? How's you cutting?
How am I
As they
Well, I
say.
mean, Cian, our producer, is a little bit late to the Zoom call, and obviously, if you're listening to this means nothing to you. But if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see I am actually broadcasting from my shed.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I'd give it a go because, funnily enough, our modem is in the back room, in the back of the house, and I have a friend who we share a back wall with, and we work together sometimes. So she's been in my house, has my Wi-Fi code, and has said, certain corners of my kitchen, I can still get your internet. So I said, that means probably my shed would have strong enough broadband, and it has stronger broadband than some parts of the upstairs of my house. So I thought I'd give it a go. It's kind of nicely insulated, kind of dead sound. I can show you. There's the roof. Amazing.
Ooh, cribs. I love
There's
cribs.
things that there's musical instruments in here that shouldn't be here. It's just because there's a room being repainted and stuff.
The background is a little different to Stephen's.
Yeah. And then there's the window to the outside world. So yeah, this is an experiment this week. I am broadcasting. It's a shedcast.
It's a shedcast. That's
yeah,
what it is.
Because it's a nice dead kind of dry space. So I was curious. You might get a bit of bird song is the only thing. Our dog's barking. But hey, that's our life
great.
now. There's way less judgment, I think.
Oh, there's no judgment.
Oh, there's no
judgment. There's no judgment. I mean, people are coming in like I was on one this morning. I won't say who it was, but they were coming in and they were kind of just making a kind of a very important point about something, and just this little child came in, mommy, 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 and then it was like, yes, dear. The impassioned point kind of had to stop. It was like, yes, dear, I've done a poo. Right, dear. Where did you do a poo? In my pants, mummy. It's like, okay, right. So she's trying to like potty train her child and do Zoom calls. Super. Oh,
I think it's kind of mad. If you have listened to the podcast from the get-go, we have talked about things like the 4-day week and the gender pay gap and all these things, things around the gender pay gap being like, when are meeting schedules? Can say working mothers even make a meeting? And then things like the 4-day week. People can't do that because we have to be in work all the time. And it's so interesting that we started this podcast whatever amount of months ago, and in the time, two things we focused on specifically have just been thrown into the air because everything has been turned on its head. And I wanted to chat to you today about, I do feel, they said we can get caught in a loop, literally kind of talking about similar stuff to what everyone's talking about.
Yeah, sure.
But one of the big issues in the election, all the elections and all politics in the last year or so has been the green issue and pollution, and that it's not sustainable what we're doing to the planet, and the planet has just stopped. We've just stopped in many ways, and there is this sense of maybe we can reset. Maybe this is a chance for us to rethink how we do things. And there is you shared an article this week on Twitter about an initiative in Milan where they're going to just cordon off 35 kilometers or so to make it just bikes and pedestrians and public transport.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right. And the people of Milan have gone, yeah, cool, do it. They've been talking about doing this for a long time. Milan is a very heavily congested city. If you've ever been there, it's a bit of a nightmare getting around it. And the pollution in northern Italy is really strong. Like it's the carbon parts per million, the particulate counts and all that kind of stuff through the roof. So they're kind of using this moment where traffic volumes are they're not even half of what they were, and pollution from industrial processes has kind of gone away, to think about a reset of their urban layout, particularly with respect to cycling. And Milan really has the climate for this. I mean, it's quite wet a lot of the time, but a lot of times it's quite dry and warm. So like when it's wet, it's horrible, and you'll take public transport. But when it's dry, it's really nice, and you can just kind of tip away, do your thing. So they've said, we're not going to go back to the way things were, and I think that there's a really, really strong sentiment, amongst lots of people, that they don't want to go back to the way things were. They've been shown a certain vista, and they're saying, well, look, this is a possibility now, isn't it? And all the stuff that people thought and said was impossible, it turns out it's not. It turns out that we've just been doing things in a certain way. That doesn't mean that people aren't having a really hard time at the moment. Like I said at the start of the podcast, they really are. But it does mean that we have this opportunity to rethink things. I mean, if you had told me that, 2 months ago, that I'd be delivering 12 hours of lectures a day, online, I in my spare room, I would have said no. that is not a thing, and it's not ideal. It's not perfect. I don't think I'm the best in the world at it, but you know what? We're all doing it. And like I don't think it's e-learning. It's just lectures recorded online. It's a very different thing. But I've now kind of like skilled up, and I've had to skill up in a very, very fast way to kind of learn how to do this properly. And yesterday I gave a 2-hour lecture in Germany. Not in Germany. 2 Germans in Germany. I was not in Germany. I was here in my spare room. And the day before, I was talking with guys in the Bank of England, and it's like everyone has simply decided that this is now the mode of instruction, and that's, I don't know. It's less. It's not as good as just being with people, but you've got to say the commute stuff is a lot better.
Yeah.
And I have 2 cars. I have 2 Fords, and they're kind of like knackered.
You don't have a Ferrari, no?
No. But I mean, overpaid public sector worker. Yeah, of course. I actually
would more of your midlife crisis.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. The sad thing is, though, I mean, midlife crisis vehicles. What would your midlife crisis vehicle be?
Mine?
Yeah, yours.
Oh, I think a yacht.
A yacht? Would you just drive down Limerick? drive down O'Connell Street in a yacht?
Yeah. Yeah, like it wouldn't be mode of transport that I would use every day. It would just be something I would have access to that I probably wouldn't be able to take very many places.
Can you sail? Have you done that stuff?
No, not at all.
You're gonna purchase an extremely expensive product that you don't know how to use.
Yeah, that or a helicopter, like something just ridiculous. And also in my midlife crisis, I'm loaded. So
yeah.
Obviously.
I feel like my midlife crisis thing might be. Do you know one of those motorbikes that dentists buy? They're kind of like they're kind of giant. They're almost cars.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you only see retired dentists on them. And they're driving along like, yeah, it's not quite a Harley. It's not as cool as a Harley, because let's face it, midlife crises are not. I'm never pulling that off. Like,
why is it
never?
I have to catch you on this dentist thing. Why is it specifically dentists?
I don't know. I just know two retired dentists who.
Okay.
And I'm now extrapolating to all dentists because
you're applying it to the world.
I'm in the mood for needless generalization. I'm like, that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm rolling.
People believe you because you are an expert.
Not a dentist, like, to be fair.
Hey.
Economics, yes. Dentists. No.
It's a podcast. We are experts.
You know what? It is interesting, actually, on that who's an expert thing. So economists are quite good at mathematical models, right? And they've been sort of having a really interesting kind of a frenemy thing with epidemiologists who also have like models with loads of variables. And some economists have been connecting epidemiologist models into their ones. And the epidemiologists are like, no, stop, you couldn't possibly, and it's been a very interesting sort of nerd off. It's a bit like a dance off, but with more equations. But it's it's an
but even less cool.
Oh my God, no, coolness is not. Coolness is nowhere near this. But what is interesting is how really smart people. So there's a lady, Rachel. I think her name is Meager, Meager. She's a professor in the LSE, and she was saying, look, all of the economists messing about with epidemiological models of what's going to happen to the disease and all that. You just need to realize that there's one thing that's really different about the data, which is the data, blood tests and stuff. They're generated from the human body, so it's all what economists call endogenous. It's all within. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have an endoskeleton; it's inside, and an insect has an exoskeleton outside.
Mm-hmm.
An endothermic reaction is an implosion. Exothermic is an explosion. So these endogenous it's in your body, you're generating it. So a lot of economic things are exogenous; they're outside the system. So the crisis just happens to you. It happens to Anne, happens to Stephen, happens to Cian. It's not within us. We didn't cause the crisis, right? We just have to sit in our spare rooms or our sheds, and just kind of do it. So there's a very big difference in how we treat those things and how we think about them. Yeah. And,
I'm gonna pause you now, right? Because you were about to talk about your car, and then I and something else. So you've two Fords.
Yes. Oh yeah, sorry, the Ford, right? So they're kind of like, they're all right, but they're I think they're 10 years old or something, and the problem with it is that I haven't driven the one that I normally drive to work for 7 weeks, right? And so I have to remind myself. I literally put in the calendar, turn it on. Because otherwise the battery's going to die, right? So if I'm that's an asset that I own. Now it is a very depreciated asset. Right? The thing is in bits, but whatever. It goes. And I'm not a car guy. I kind of would like to be a car guy because it's something external, to love. And I have great friends who are kind of proper car guys. I've seen a guy who's a neighbor of mine, and he's a friend, and I know he listens to the podcast. And I've heard him describe Saabs in a particular way that only a car lover can describe Saabs that way.
In a loving way.
Yeah. I would say beyond loving. I would say almost reverential.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm always impressed by that. I would love that. But unfortunately, I just see them as utilitarian boxes with wheels to get me from A to B. And but the problem is I have this depreciated asset, and it's like it's a diesel as well. Like, it's super polluting and whatever. So I should get rid of it. Now, so think about it. If everyone's like me, and everyone goes, all right, I don't need a second car now. Why? Because I'm working from home, even 2 days a week. Do I really need a car? 3? Do we need 2 cars when we live in rural Limerick? Do we really need 2 cars for 5 days a week? No, not really. Think about that. Car demand for secondhand cars falls, the price falls. Car dealerships get really into trouble because nobody, people aren't coming in to replace their cars all of a sudden. Maybe the next car we buy is like a secondhand electric car, so all of a sudden, the emissions from our household drop, substantially, but also so does all of the various interconnections, the petrol stations that we now buy fuel from in far reduced quantities, by the way. Which is something, actually we should talk about this. So this week, right, so
we're reimagining. Can we reimagine, like, say, Limerick? Okay, that's where we live. To become more focused on public, like, can we reset?
Yeah,
and more public transport, more cycling, more walking, and free up our very small city centre from cars.
So I think we can do something whereby we pedestrianize a large portion of the city centre. I think there are probably 3 things that we can do. The first is to make on-street parking expensive, right? So that right now it's cheaper to park on the street than to park in a car park, in one of the high-rise car parks. So like, that doesn't make any sense. So equalize or increase the price that people pay to park on street. Um, remove contraflow. Remove all contraflow car lanes, so cars are never coming across each other like that. They're only going one way,
Okay.
right? And then have large park and ride facilities at the edges of the city. If you do those three things, you end up in a situation where there's almost no transit. And then for heavy goods vehicles that have to get into the city to drop off stuff, you merely mandate a time frame in which they can do that early in the morning, late at night, whatever, or even during the day. And every time outside of that, heavy goods vehicles have a giant fee imposed upon them, like a tenner, like a lot of money, right? And if you do that, then what you do is you basically force cars that are transiting through Limerick just to get somewhere else. You force them round onto the motorway. You massively decrease car transit in the city. But you make the city much nicer for people to be in. So you can start talking about, putting like playgrounds where roads used to be. Okay.
Right.
You can start talking about using the kind of totally empty open spaces in a really new way. And I mean, we've had two major retailers have left this week. In fact, so Debenhams have left, and so have Ann Summers. And so those two shops have shut down, which is really sad for the people who work there, and for their customers, of course, right?
Yeah.
So we're back to the situation that we were in 2008, where retail, the market, just leaves, right? So large parts of Limerick City, of the shops in the city, are just kind of going away because they're seeing no footfall. So what do you do to bring things back? Well, the first thing I think to focus on is if people want to be there, they'll go there. So that's one thing. If people want to be there, they'll go there. You think about Rome, right? Rome obviously has lots and lots and lots of nice things to draw people in, but actually, as a city, it's very dysfunctional. It's very difficult to make Rome work. But people still really want to go there, and when they go there, they more or less walk around, right?
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful city, and it's very nice. But fundamentally, when we think about the city, we have to remember who it's for. Okay. So we often talk about the city as a tourist destination. We talk about the city as a place of, commerce or whatever. Like ultimately, I think Limerick is for the people who live in it, who work in it, and who, like everyone's welcome, of course, right? But I think the most important thing is it should be a nice place to be. And do you remember we were talking about policy objectives, maximizing income versus minimizing cruelty? Remember that?
Yes.
Same thing, right? So instead of maximizing rates or maximizing footfall, maximize satisfaction amongst the people who use the city. That
will be.
So there's, so like, is it nice? Is it? And I don't just mean nice, like, oh, there are plants, or I like trees, or whatever. I mean, like, are you delighted? So there's a place called Lucky Lane.
Yes.
Right, and they've got this beautiful kind of shop, and it's got all these cool little things in it. And you go in there, and you see like a reproduction time turner from Harry Potter, and you're aware that your daughter's completely obsessed by Harry Potter. So you buy the fucking time turner. I have no idea how much it cost me. I don't care, because I just like, time turner. Just give me. So, but I was delighted when I saw. I was like, yes, I found this thing, and I was like, they're really give me the time turner. It's going to be amazing, right? And she wears it all the time, and it's just brilliant, right? That's what I mean. Limerick has these lovely lanes that are just kind of filled with garbage and cars at the moment, and you could, there are lanes in Melbourne that are just amazing, like there's a shop in Melbourne, and it just sells hats, right? And I'm not a hat guy, but I went in there and I was like, oh my god, and the guys like, they measure your head and they give you the right kind of hat and they look at you and you're like, you're definitely not like a, you know, fedora guy or whatever. Like, they kind of they know, and you walk out. I think one of the kids had, but you're delighted because it's like a quirky, interesting thing,
Yeah.
and the lanes of Melbourne are just, they're covered in these beautiful graffiti kind of art things. And it's just like, you go there and you're like, you kind of want to discover this stuff because it's so awesome.
It's interesting
Yeah.
because I remember a few years ago there was a thing called Local Heroes, and
Mm,
there's a consultant there. I can't remember his name or anything, but he said a city is made of citizens,
yes.
and people don't
Yes.
want tourists don't want to come to a city that has no citizens. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you go to a city, you go somewhere like, I don't know, Rome or that, and yeah, sure, there's loads of tourists, but when you see the real person living there. And
Yeah.
the other thing, like that you're saying there, like just about being delighted, and um, I remember in 2014 we did the City of Culture year,
Mm,
and a load of alleyways had this beautiful lighting and artwork
yes.
put in the
Yes.
ceilings of the archways,
Mm.
and the powers that be in the city, after a certain amount of time, removed them.
Oh.
Certain street art got painted over, and I think, and I'm not being, what I mean is, like, there is a chance now for a will. There's a problem when the powers that be don't see the value of,
Mm,
not just like value. It's kind of like we were talking about with the economics of arts, the
mm.
well-being of. If I feel a lot safer if I have to go down an alleyway if it's well lit and there's something beautiful there rather than
Sure.
dark and someone's pissing up against a wall.
Yeah.
They're less likely to piss up against that wall if there's beautiful artwork or whatever it is. And it's just
Yeah.
this. I suppose we're in a crisis, but with crisis is opportunity, for better or for
Hmm.
worse.
Yep.
And we have an opportunity right now to rethink and
Yep.
as we keep saying, to reset. This is a question I have for you, because as
Go for
a
it.
regular human in the world who does not quite know how it works as well as an economist like yourself, like the obsession in Ireland with cars and the adoration of car parks, like
Car
above all
parks.
else. Yeah, it's like, quick, there's a new building infrastructure opportunity in the city centre, we'll get a car park in. And this drive, and the drive and the need
Sure.
to have cars on a really small island that we live
Mm,
on.
mm.
I'm curious, what are the origins of that?
Well, you got to remember. So 100 years ago, there were no cars, right? Um, and so we've only got 100 years of experience with these machines, but they've kind of really deformed they've deformed our landscape in many respects. But they've also freed us up, if but they replaced something. So there were rail lines in Ireland in the 19th century. And not a lot of people know this, but Ireland actually was incredibly well served by railways.
Yeah.
Because of an equity boom. It turned out it was literally like the property boom of 2007, 2008, but it was for railways. And there were so many railways being built in the UK that they were like, sure, feck it, we'll make some in Ireland too, because of course we were part of the UK at the time, and they couldn't lose money on these things, so they lashed up railways everywhere,
You can
and
see the
we
maps.
didn't keep them up.
You can see the maps of them, of the old
Oh,
railway.
so yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. The
heartbreaking.
state just couldn't afford to keep them up. That was, people say, oh, it was a conspiracy. And it really wasn't. It was just money. They couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant economic historian called Alan de Bromhead who he's really studied this very carefully,
Mm,
and he's of the opinion that this really was simply like, we can feed people or we can pay for railways.
okay.
Feed
Okay.
feed people. That's it. So yeah, I think a lot of this stuff comes down to value, right? So we talked about diamonds and water before.
Yeah.
And the main difference is that if you got a big lake of water, an extra cup of water is worthless to you, right? Because it's all the same. Whereas with diamonds, even though they're functionally useless, the fact is an extra diamond is much rarer, right? So if you just switch the context now to the city, okay, in order to make, right now everyone assumes that the land in the city is like an ocean of water, okay, and what you have to do is turn the city into diamonds, and the way you turn the city into diamonds is with art. You make it unique, right? You make it unique. You create the art in the laneways. That laneway is now unique. Yeah, it's a diamond. It used to be water. There used to be a load of these anonymous garbage and piss filled spaces, and now it's a piece of art. It's a diamond. It's unique. Yeah, and if we just thought that way, right, we'd be so much better off, and it'd be nicer. You know, it'd be so much nicer, and I'd like to go there. I think it would be great. You know.
Oh,
and,
yes, Particles and Waves. That was the name of the artistic project that brightened up the laneways. Anyway,
oh, right.
Some with school children.
Right.
It was incredible. But go on, sorry.
Yeah. We should talk. We should have a chat in a subsequent podcast about particles and waves.
Okay.
I'm really, really, really interested in that stuff because it turns out we're all particles and waves, as it turns out.
So, but you're saying that, so it's that kind of changing the mindset of people, like, and you say art as well, but I suppose as well as beautifying and making somewhere, it's what's in the city, like, you know, like Lucky Lane, like lovely pubs, like cafes, like galleries, you know, and shops where you can buy things you need. You know? I'm really struck by that with my 2 kilometer, like, I'm lucky there are Lidl's nearby me, but sometimes I don't want to get in the car, and if I've got a 24-hour shop near me called Quick Pick, which is amazing. You know, if I just want to get milk or even some bananas or whatever, I'm putting a lot more value. An interesting thing, actually, while I know we're running out of time, is I live near the People's Park in Limerick, and I go in there and people are socially distancing. It is busy, but people are being careful. But what I'm struck by is there is this feeling of the value of the park in a very new way. That like, what I love about the park is I go there and there's a soccer match in the summer between a bunch of young fellas, and it's the United Nations. Like, it's such a mix of nationalities. Clearly, visually, you can tell there's a lot of nationalities. There could even be more, like, mixed in there. And you always see the international new communities using the park. But what I'm noticing now is those communities are still using the park, and the people who probably normally would hop in their car are using the park. And I'm not bumping into people physically, but I just think it's interesting what you're saying about turning the city into diamonds. I feel in a way that's happened, and there's people are understanding the value of the park, for example, or of the boardwalk.
And they're feeling it too, right? Like, so they're feeling it. It is what I've noticed though. So I live near Glenstall Abbey. We go walking around the thing every night, just to get out of the house. And people are, first off, they have more time to stop and talk, so they're interested in stopping and talking. They look you in the eyes and they ask you, "Are you okay? You know, are you okay? Are things okay?" Right? And they mean it. You know, and I hope, like the guys in Milan, that we use this kind of moment to sort of say, well, look, everything we did the way before, the reason, the things that we did in the past and the ways that we did those things are more or less arbitrary.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason that we did them was because we did them yesterday. And if you're forced to see that, and we all are forced to see that, then it behooves us to say, well, what other things could we do? Right?
Yeah.
And they're not theoretical proposals, because you can always go, look, actually, you know, you did most of your job from your spare room, Steve. So, you know, I think those kinds of conversations they're far more real. Irish people and most people are fundamentally pragmatic. They need to see it. They need to live it. And if they experience it, they go, oh, okay, right, fine. We can then they will make changes based on that. And I believe that this is the moment to start thinking about those changes. Also believe that there's going to be a great forgetting.
Yeah, and we're going to get to
over.
the great forgetting because we are going to run out of time otherwise. But let's
Yeah.
take a note of that. So
Yeah.
we're going to stick with Diamonds and Water because I quite like it as a way. we keep coming back to that. But I do think and I do take note of that, absolutely, because I do feel lessons will be learned, lessons will be forgotten, the park will get forgotten, and people. But we will. I don't want to cut you off, Stephen. I don't want to lose the diamonds. But we will be back next week to talk about stuff. So in the meantime, I'm gonna say sayonara from the shed.
And I will say sayonara from the spare room.
Excellent. Well, listen, lovely to chat. I think sorry if you can hear my dog whinging outside. She's not impressed that I'm in the shed and she isn't.
She's done a poo.
She's done a poo. Oh, God, probably. Outside, it's fine. Listen, Stephen, lovely to talk as ever.
You too. Mind yourself.
And until next week, bye-bye.
See ya.
You have been listening to Anne and Steve Talk Stuff, a Limerick Post podcast produced by Cian Reinhardt, theme tune composed and performed by David Blake. Follow Stephen Kinsella on Twitter at Stephen Kinsella, he's a Stephen with a PH, Anne Blake at AnneBlake78, she is an Anne with no E, and the Limerick Post at Limerick Post. If you have any questions, you can get to any of these Twitter accounts or follow the hashtag AnneSteveTalk.